Everyone has a story. And so does everything. Antique, vintage, or curio.
Honestly, so exciting to see a doll like this from the 1800s in such incredible condition.
Like, we've had collections that have sold for, tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Technological innovations, cultural significance, personal memories. What is it that gives each of these unique items their timeless quality?
Can't find these anywhere. No.
Join us as we blow off the dust and breathe new life into the past and the curious. In this episode of The Past and the Curious, we delve into the world of classic typewriters, intricate vases, and exquisite statues. Marvel at the delicate design of a filigree vase.
So delicate and fine. It really is a great skill and must take a lot of years of practice to be able to do that so well and with such precision.
Explore the artistry of the Eugenio Battiglia alabaster statue.
They capture a time period where people had devotion to their craft. Just having access to seeing this time period, you would think that it would really have a spur for people to recreate it.
Discover the timeless appeal of the Underwood typewriter.
If you look at a traditional computer keyboard, you can see exactly where it derived from. Nowadays, we all have some form of keyboard that we're usually working on, but nothing really compares to that feeling of hitting those keys.
My name is Ken Turner, and I brought in an Underwood typewriter. I'm interested in the Underwood typewriter just because it's an interesting find. It was just one of those happenstance kind of moments for me, and it was 15 years ago, and I've had it this long. I just was curious, what's its actual story?
In the early 20th century, one of the many marvels of contemporary engineering was perfected, changing the world of writing forever: the Underwood typewriter. The clatter of its keys were not just a sound, but a symphony of progress resonating through the early years of the 20th century. Each keystroke was a testament to the era's technological advancements, transforming the way people communicated and worked. In homes, this typewriter stood as an indicator of modernity, a bridge from the traditional pen and paper to the convenience of the mechanical age. As fingers danced across its keys, the typewriter became an intimate part of family life. It was there for the personal letters filled with emotion, the manuscripts of aspiring writers dreaming in the quiet of their studies, and the diligent students typing their theses, each tap contributing to a future boldly written.
Hi, Ken. Thanks so much for coming in today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Can you tell me what it is that we are looking at?
Well, this is an ancient artifact from many, many years ago when people used to work manually instead of electronically. And it is a typewriter, an Underwood typewriter.
Excellent. And tell me, how did this come into your possession?
It was somebody's garbage. I was walking to the store on bulk garbage day, and it was just laying on the sidewalk, and it was too good to pass up.
Now, what space does this occupy in your life right now?
So it's a decor piece in my office, which looks very similar to this actually. It's all a 1940s aesthetic in my office. I'm really into the 1940s, that whole era.
Now, is this in working condition? Do you actually use it?
There was some ribbon in there when I found it.
I think I can see it kind of tangled up.
Is it down in there?
Yeah.
And it did imprint, but it wasn't in working order. I'm sure it could be restored though.
This typewriter is one of several models made by the Underwood Company of Canada, and I was able to locate a serial number on it. And when you look up the serial number, you can basically get the year that it was created. This particular typewriter came from around 1941. There are a few other things that you could look at to find the age. The front of the typewriter itself, 1930s models had a U shape here where you could see the bars. And so this was one of the first closed front models. And then if you look carefully here, it says Champion on the keyboard. And that started in 1935 models.
So what do we know about Underwood itself, made in Canada?
Underwood themselves actually started out just making ribbons and carbon paper for other companies' typewriters. They quickly realized, hey, why don't we make the typewriter ourselves, then we can sell the whole kit. And that's how they got started.
So who would use this? Would this be at somebody's desk? Would it be in an office somewhere? Who was using this?
I would say this particular model in this time period would have primarily been used in an office setting. It really played a crucial role in transforming business communication, making it way more efficient.
Okay.
A machine like this was so reliable and so efficient, it really was commonplace at the time. Interestingly enough, when the popularity of the typewriter really hit, there were a lot of skeptics who worried that it would take away from the tradition of handwriting. Over time, the typewriter really became an integral part of office life and set the standard for typing as we still know it today.
So this set the standard for communication, but what happened before there was a standard?
Well, before this, they would have been handwriting, they would have been using printing presses. It really all shifted in the late 1800s. The typewriter, as we know it today, has the QWERTY layout, and it was actually created by Christopher Latham Sholes. He was the inventor of the Sholes and Glidden typewriter in 1874, and apparently it was good enough that we're still using it today. If you look at a traditional computer keyboard, you can see exactly where it derived from. And that was in part to make it a seamless transition when people moved away from typewriters to computers. Nowadays, we all have some form of keyboard that we're usually working on, but nothing really compares to that feeling of hitting those keys. There's absolutely no lack of impact the typewriters had on our society, from revolutionizing the office space, boosting productivity, to setting the standard for typing. When you look at this beautiful piece displayed in your office, how does it make you feel?
It really speaks to my heart because, again, I really love that nostalgic sort of romance that comes with that post-war era. It inspires my photography, which is another element of my life that I really enjoy, being involved in. It's sort of the birthplace of all these other really creative things that are happening in my life. Plus, Tom Hanks collects them, and he's never steered me wrong yet.
Ken, thanks so much for coming in today with this awesome piece of typewriter history. Can you tell me what your plan is with it moving forward?
Well, I'm gonna put it back on my shelf, and I'm gonna leave it there and move it as infrequently as possible because it's very heavy. And hopefully it will just continue to inspire, the creative stuff that happens because of it. So literally this was garbage. I paid $0 for it. So is there any value to something like this?
Not everyone is as lucky as you that would just find this magically on the street. There's definitely a collectability to typewriters like this. I would estimate that a model like this with these gorgeous keys would probably go for about $125.
Okay.
I think the amount that this piece has inspired in your life means that it is absolutely living in the right place with you.
The conversation we had today really did change the way I look at the typewriter. I appreciate understanding its history a little bit better, and it makes being part of its history all the more interesting.
More remarkable relics after the break.
It would take a craftsperson many years of practice to learn this skill because you're working with such fine wire.
I'm Gary Hall, and I brought in a filigree Chinese vase. I saw it at Habitat for Humanity. I really liked the intricacy of it. I saw that it was all handmade and silver, and it drew me to it.
Filigree is a form of metalwork that is crafted with a dazzling thread of twisted metals, usually gold and silver, woven intricately into the fabric of artistic expression. The earliest evidence of filigree being used dates back to 3000 BC in ancient Mesopotamia. In China, this delicate art form blossomed during the Han Dynasty. However, it was during the Shang Dynasty from 618 CE to 907 CE, which was often heralded as a golden age of Chinese art and culture, that filigree truly flourished. This era saw a vibrant exchange of ideas and influences along the Silk Road, enriching Chinese art forms with diverse techniques and styles. Filigree work became increasingly sophisticated, with artisans pushing the boundaries of their craft to create intricate patterns and designs. And filigree became a hallmark of luxury and sophistication in Chinese decorative arts.
Hi, Gary. Welcome to the show. Can you tell me what you've brought to show us today?
brought a little vase that I picked up at Habitat for Humanity for a couple of dollars. I found out that it was handmade, which I found was very interesting. It's just so delicate, the workmanship that went into it.
So why did you bring this piece to show us today? What are you looking to find out, and what can you tell us about it?
Well, I was interested in finding out the history behind it. I tried looking on the internet to find information, and I couldn't find anything. And, you know, the value of it would be nice to know.
What we have here is a filigree vase, which came from China, and it is made from silver wire, and the wire is 92.5% pure, which makes it sterling silver. And the wires are twisted together and then soldered and made into a pattern. And the patterns are distinctive depending on which artist and which country it came from.
Oh.
So the vase has some markings on the bottom, and it says PRC, which means People's Republic of China. And the People's Republic of China was not formed until October 1st, 1949. So that means that this piece was made after 1949. And it has also on the bottom a number. It says 314 out of 1,000. This is a perfect example of the filigree craft that was done in China. And the craftsmanship is beautiful, and it's extremely well made, and I think you're lucky to have found it.
Me too. Linda, how far back does the Chinese filigree go?
Well, actually, filigree goes back all the way to Roman and Greek times, and it has been refined, and they've tried different kinds of metals. They've used different thicknesses of wire, because it is twisted wire that's soldered together and twisted into these patterns. And it's been refined in a lot of different countries in the Middle East. And China has been creating filigree pieces for centuries.
I've never seen anything like this before other than on the internet. It's 314 out of 1,000. How rare is it?
Well, I don't think it's as rare as you think. Because there were so many countries that produce filigree, I would imagine that there is quite a bit of it out there, although I'm not sure that it's all the same quality as the piece that you have here. It's so delicate and fine, and to think that someone formed those beautiful flowers and the feather shapes that are on the neck of the piece just with wire and soldering. It really is a great skill and must take a lot of years of practice to be able to do that so well and with such precision. Over time, artists have refined the technique of doing filigree. They've used different weights of wires, different materials for the wires, and each country has their own style and their own motifs that come out in each piece that they produce. It would take a craftsperson many years of practice to learn this skill, because you're working with such fine wire, and you have a tradition of certain motifs that you're trying to create. It's not something that's done easily, and it's certainly a very valuable skill for a tradesperson to have.
Do you know who would have been responsible for this piece?
Well, on the bottom, there is a maker's mark, and if we knew what that maker's mark represented, then we could know who the maker is, but there are no other symbols other than this mark on the bottom. So we just know that it was in the People's Republic of China, and it would have been after 1949 that it was made.
I was wondering, are collectors looking for pieces like this?
I'm sure there are collectors who are looking for filigree pieces because they are made with precious metals like silver and sometimes gold. So I'm sure people who are interested in fine art, because to me it's a fine art, would like to collect pieces like this. Nowadays, there's more interest in preserving our history, and so pieces like this have become more important in museums and people's collections, and they're something that are coveted. So Gary, what space does this vase occupy in your life? Do you have it out on display? Do you hide it in a drawer? How important is it to you?
Well, it was in a drawer, but now it's on display. I got my way at home. No, actually, it is on display on our sofa table.
The timeless appeal of a piece like this is the aesthetic, the artistic value. And if you are artistic at all, then it would really appeal to you.
And it does.
Current day artists may look at filigree and the techniques that are used and decide to incorporate those techniques into other techniques and come up with something totally different. But who knows what the young artists today will find in looking at a piece like this. Thank you for coming on the show, Gary. What is your plan for this filigree vase going forward?
Going forward, when I get home, it's going to go back on the sofa table.
A piece like this is beautiful to display in your home, Gary. Would you ever consider selling it?
It would depend on the price.
So looking at a piece like this and the condition that it's in, and having done a little bit of research, I would say that this piece is worth between $200 and $300.
Wow. Yeah, I like that. That's a good investment.
A little bit better than the $2 you bought it for.
That's for sure. I wish my other investments would raise like that.
So considering that price, Gary, would you be willing to sell that vase?
I think so.
Well, maybe we'll have a discussion after this then.
Sounds good to me. I had a great time being here with you guys. Learned a lot. So if you're out there and you see something for $2, $3, you never know what it's going to be worth.
Stay tuned. Artifacts await.
And in just such a fast-paced world we live in, the art is just sensational, and it does still live on in Italy today.
Well, my name is John Ricci, and today I've brought in a statue, a beautiful statue of a mother with a young child.
Eugenio Bottiglia was an Italian sculptor who was primarily active during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. He was renowned for his exquisite alabaster works. Bottiglia was born and raised in Volterra, Tuscany, a mining town well known for producing some of the finest alabaster. Among his most famous works is the alabaster sculpture of Cleopatra, created around 1900 in Florence. Bottiglia's ability to manipulate alabaster allowed him to achieve an extraordinary level of realism and finesse, making the veins, folds of clothing, and even the texture of skin appear remarkably natural. Today, Bottiglia's sculptures are found in private collections and auction houses. The continued reverence for his work pays homage to Bottiglia's profound impact on the world of sculpting.
Well, thanks for coming on the show today, John. I was wondering, could you tell us about the item you brought?
Well, this beautiful statue is a statue that belonged to my wife's parents, specifically my father-in-law. Nobody really knows where it came from because, of course, now my father-in-law's passed away. We inherited it from his estate. They had it in their home since the early 60s, I know that. And it's been in our home now since 2014.
So what made you want to bring this particular statue on the show today?
Well, I mean, I'm not an art collector, so I don't know anything about art, anything about what this could be worth. I'm not looking to sell it, but I'd be curious to know who did it, when they created it, are there others like it, and what the value of it might be.
So this statue was made by Eugenio Bottiglia, and he was famous for making similar statues out of alabaster. He would have made this at the end of the 19th century. Florence was sort of the capital for alabaster at the time.
So I've looked at this very carefully. I mean, I just love the piece, and I do notice that there's a signature. You really have to look, but it's on the back of the base there. So do you know anything about that?
So he would have had students working below him as well and making renditions of his pieces that he would oversee. Potentially there could be some counterfeits out there. It's always a little bit of a tricky thing to decipher.
Okay.
Because there wasn't a lot of records at the time writing down his work, both of his pieces and himself are a little bit of a mystery.
Well, I personally have never seen a statue this magnificent and this, I guess, rare. Would you consider it rare?
I would consider it rare. Because he was such a mystery. He did have a body of work, but there's not a lot known about it. And of course, you know, sculptures are very popular coming from Italy. This certainly depicts a different sort of scene than we're used to seeing gods and that sort of thing. So the art of this sort of magnitude isn't done as much these days because of mass production and just such a fast-paced world we live in. But the art is just sensational, and it does still live on in Italy today.
Well, I thought this was marble, personally. What can you tell me about alabaster?
So one of the things that made alabaster such an interesting material to use is that it was so easy to carve. New media techniques sort of squashed what was going on with alabaster as they were coming out, but then there was a couple of revivals in the Gothic age. They were using new tools and techniques, and then again in the Renaissance, they were also using alabaster in more modern ways, which really led to the art staying alive to today.
Well, I mean, this is something that I don't think we'd ever want to have leave our family, but I have to ask, are collectors looking for things like this?
I think it would certainly appeal to collectors, being so unique and from such a mysterious artist. It does capture a time in Florence where it was at the height of its craftsmanship. It's a piece directly from that period. So just looking at it, you can tell the shine from the alabaster, and you can see how the light shows the translucent quality that the alabaster has. And it really is beautiful for showing just the light areas and the shadows. So pieces like this nowadays, they're just so amazing to see, and they capture a time period where people had devotion to their craft. And just having access to seeing this time period, you would think that it would really have a spur for people to recreate it. Where does this currently exist in your home?
This is in our family dining room on a credenza up against the wall, and we look at it every time we sit down for a more formal dinner in the dining room.
Excellent, must be quite the conversation starter.
People look at it and they just say, where'd that come from? Because you just don't see this everywhere.
No, in Canada, we have very little exposure to this sort of time period. How does this make you feel to see it?
Well, this reminds me of being up at my in-laws' farm. That's where I originally saw it, and that's where it lived for about 50, 60 years, and a lot of good memories back then. The farm is no longer, but we're just so glad that it survived, and we're going to keep it in the family.
Excellent. Thanks so much for bringing this to the show today. What is your plan for this moving forward?
There is no plan. It's just going to stay where it is, and I hope one day we're going to give it to one of our children when they have a home on their own.
So you're telling me you're not going to part with this today?
No. For me, it's just too much of a one-of-a-kind item. I don't care what it's worth, but I am curious.
So based on the quality of the state of the statue and the time period that it's from, the signature is not potentially 100%. There would have to be a little bit more in that, but if that was official, I think this would probably be valued at I think between 10 and 30,000.
Serious? Well, that's amazing. I don't even know what to say to that. We're not looking to sell it, but I like just knowing that there's a value there. Thank you.
You're welcome. Just call your insurance company.
The price was a lot more than I had imagined. I'm not disappointed in hearing that, but again, it's a treasure. I mean, it's not something that I would ever think of selling. It's good to know, but no, I think we're going to keep this. Well, I think if somebody was to watch this and they would see a statue, I would hope they'd give some pause, that maybe the next time they see a statue, or perhaps even have opportunity to purchase a statue, you're buying a piece of history. And I mean, that doesn't come along every day.